subscribe. I'm like, yeah, hell no, not subscribing to your newsletter. I don't have.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. I'm your host, Moose, and this is my producer, Nick. Our main discussion is about Islam in the 21st century. However, we will critique other religions and ideologies. We condemn any form of discrimination, violence, misogyny, slavery. We do, however, embrace many perspectives and free speech if it is factual and correct, and not based on any hate. Throughout the show, we will be exploring different religious beliefs, practices, and their impact on society, ranging from politics, interpersonal relationships, and mental health of believers and non-believers. We hope to create an open dialogue for those who feel they're not heard, especially those who have doubts and have left their belief systems. If you are interested in exploring the complex topic of religion and wish to be part of an honest and open dialogue, this is the show for you. We also welcome feedback and discussion from our audience and listeners. The Gin and Tonic Show is a free speech platform where you can express your ideas without any fear of violence and repercussions or any consequences. Please do join our discussion in the live chat as well as the comments. Thank you for stopping by and enjoy the Gin and Tonic Show.
Good evening or afternoon, everyone, depending on the time zone that you're in. And welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. Also, hi, Christy. I am joined here not by Nick. This is not Nick. This is Pajit, who's wearing the mask of PragerU. How are you doing?
Yeah. How about you translate what Bajit means to the audience?
Wait, can you do that? Because Hindi is not my first language.
No, Bajit is what Pakistani folks tell about, like, use as a derogatory term for.
Oh, right. Yes. Oh, it's more of an online thing, though. It's become an online troll thing to call, like, Pajit is a derogatory term for, like,
what I don't fucking understand is that aren't we the same fucking ethnicity, race, or whatever the fuck it is?
Yeah, it's
It's not like it's a white guy calling you Pajit. It's another brown dude.
Yeah, this is where we call, like, it's cross-border racism. We'll call this cross-border racism.
It ain't goddamn racism because they're the same goddamn race.
Well, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this because you do realize that, just because we're separated by one arbitrary line, and our race changes. Xenophobia,
yeah, I think
probably, yeah, xenophobia. That could be the case. But yes,
yeah.
So
would you like me to play my special video now? I've been dying to show the audience.
Fine, you can. Okay, first, before today's episode will be politically focused today because of Pakistan's situation. But in the mood of being lighthearted, Nikhil, yes, you can play the video of Muhammad.
If you look just at the Quran, you will get the indication that you can have sexual intercourse with a 5-year-old. Are you sick in the mind? Are you that mentally enslaved and intellectually subservient and intellectually molested and ideologically molested? You really should be ashamed of yourself, but you should be humiliated. You should be humiliated. You make me absolutely sick.
This is brilliant. This is brilliantly put together. This is genius if you think about it. This is funny.
What my inspiration was do you know the Jogan versus Joe Rogan discussions where the guy takes two separate podcasts of Joe Rogan and then like he makes edits almost as if Joe Rogan is talking.
Yes.
So I'm trying to like do that with Dava guys, where Ali Dava basically refutes himself in almost like an Ali Dava versus Ali Dava, Muhammad Hijab versus Muhammad Hijab,
Oh yes.
and making shorts for Gin and Tonic. If you think this is a good idea, please leave a comment.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea for like the shorts section, especially. Sorry, Stops, we're partially a comedy channel as well too now. So yeah, it's so yeah, I know Stops. You're not dead yet, but you know you're
just so in the words of Muhammad Hijab, you and I are both intellectually molested.
Yeah, we're both intellectually molested, and that's why we give a crap about humanity, and especially my former country, or let's say the country of my birth, Pakistan. That is, because I'm.
Oh yeah, no, Pakistan is a fatherly figure, so they want to play catch with you, but the thing is they can't afford cricket balls there, so they end up using stones, and they can't afford gloves, so the ball.
Boy, now, no need for stereotypes. No need for stereotypes, boy.
Well, it's the truth, right?
No. Stay away from the stereotypes. We're not gonna use some stereotypes, all right? Or else I'm gonna use the Indian dad slipper. And that's also a stereotype. Okay, so I'm gonna share some articles that there was, just to summarize, recently there have been protests all over Pakistan since May 9th. This was in reaction to Imran Khan. Imran Khan being, arrested. That is, Imran Khan was arrested. He was taken by force. And then his supporters, also both from his party and not from his party, that is, actually went to the streets and protested. And it actually got pretty violent. Like there was a lot of vandalism and sorts. However, the funny thing is that the houses that were targeted were army houses of generals. So the funny thing is, I kind of see this as a silver lining that people are standing up to the military establishment that has been in control of Pakistan, its politics, its businesses, its entire economy for ever since, well, I would say, the first takeover, roughly speaking. They have been directly ruling Pakistan for 40 plus years at this point. We've had 4 different dictators. Even this government is partially controlled by the military. This is practically common knowledge at this point, that the military does not let go of its grip of power. So what happened was that they shut down the internet when the protests were happening. And a lot of foreign media was prevented from reporting certain scenes. But people were still able to upload on on the platform using VPN. And they instead of, because they found out that there's VPN, there's something called VPN, they tried to slow down the speed of the internet. So the first article I'm gonna share is about what do you call it? Um, the shutdown. That is. This is from BBC. The internet shutdown. So Pakistan shut down the internet, and this was a ploy to stop the protests, but it didn't work. If anything, there have been clashes with the security forces. How, by the way, Imran Khan has been released on bail, but he has a bail for 2 weeks. But the way he was arrested, he was dragged out of his house. There were windows broken, and he was violently arrested by the paramilitary. So there has been a sort of a battle between Imran Khan's supporters and the powerful Pakistani militaries, and has this week been raging on two fronts: the streets and social media. And on one battlefield, the prime minister has the former prime minister Imran Khan, not the prime minister, the former prime minister, seems to have the upper hand.
Well, that's because he got his cricket bat to used as a weapon.
Yeah. He's, by the way, Imran Khan is a former cricket player, that is. He has that goodwill of being a cricket player. He's a philanthropist as well, too. So he has a lot of goodwill built up.
And
also,
he's a ladies' man, so considering how
also
many
ladies
times...
man. Also, he's a huge misogynist, too. I'll just put this out there. He's a very big, huge misogynist, to the point that he's a rape apologist, too. So,
well, considering how many he's done, he probably needs to be a rape apologist.
Yeah, and not only that, well, again, we don't know if he did, and
allegedly,
we don't know. We don't know. We can't make that accusation just yet. But legally,
we can make the accusation, but we have to call it an accusation.
Not that none of the victims have ever, said anything, right? There's no victim, nothing.
Due to fear of life.
Yeah. So, again, we're assuming this is an assumption. We're not saying, but he is a huge rape apologist. This is what I'm going to say, because he was blaming women for, being sexually assaulted, that is. And this is someone who studied in Oxford, like in England, practically. And you've lived in the Western society, you've lived in both Eastern and Western society. You would expect you have a more open mind. But he is quite rigid in his thinking. At least with women's issues, that is. But
yeah, I heard he's pro-abortion, though. He caused a lot of them.
Nick, quiet, boy, quiet being the troll. Quit being the troll. Anyway, given the situation, he's also the least problematic of all of the leaders that we have. Unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
He's the
especially
best.
Especially because he only showed his manliness to women and not the actual government.
Well, he's actually showing his manliness to the government right now. Like, that's what the big news is that he's actually standing up to the military establishment. He has been very vocal against the military establishment, against the Sharif family for their corruption. He's also been vocal against the government to himself. He even stated that as a prime minister, I barely had any control. So he has been calling for, elections to dissolve the parliament, and it's basically been quite intense. And I give it to him. He is doing something right, which is standing up to the military. And there have been attempts on his life too. The fact that he was dragged like that, it goes to show that, he's standing up for something. So it was kind of like a swashbuckling immediately sparked protests. In Lahore, Nigat Dad rushed home after hearing Imran Khan had been detained. Leaving in the office at the city center, the lawyer staff had already started to encounter violent protesters. A mob tried to attack their cars and stop them from leaving, she told BBC. As one of the Pakistan's digital rights activists, she was also keeping an eye on the discourse raging online. Images of stone-throwing protesters in clouds of tear gas unrolled social media and pinched across WhatsApp groups. The video of the arrest, Khan being sworn by paramilitary troops, went viral. So basically, I actually saw this video, and the paramilitary troops broke windows. This was pretty violent. How they dragged him out, and
I
Khan was
like how
pretty
it's not, I like how it's not the actual military and it's some paramilitary organization.
Yeah, so they didn't send
So-
their own big boys. They sent their little version of their big boys because they didn't want to get
So
their own hands
basically, just for the audience, the difference between a military unit and a paramilitary unit is paramilitary unit are mercenaries hired by the government with military training.
Yes.
So basically, like in the olden days, they were like let's say you were the Persians, basically Greek soldiers in retirement would go to Persia and get be mercenaries for to be able to plunder gold. And paramilitary organizations are basically like military who use military technology and work as contractors and such. That would be the difference. So they're essentially like almost modern day mercenaries that were taken.
Fascinating. So these were the paramilitary descent to capture him, and there was rapid fire updates on Twitter. So to control the escalating situation, the government flipped the switch, and social media sites went down. People were struggling to load on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Mobile networks were blocked in some places, resulting in full connectivity outage. Elsewhere, internet speeds were throttled. When the blackout came, for most Pakistanis, it wasn't unexpected. Those that could boot up their VPNs demand for the service, which reroute the user's internet location by 1,300%. Trackers later told BBC those they were basically the ones using VPN were the ones able to update foreign media, and those with mobile access continue to use WhatsApp. Now, shutting down the internet it's a very authoritarian move, yeah, especially in South Asia. Remember, Nick, the internet shutdown in Kashmir, for example, when they did the takeover.
Yeah.
So this is a very similar situation here too. And that, however, that was just one province, one tiny province of Kashmir, Indian Kashmir, not Pakistani, Indian Kashmir. This was the entire country.
I'm gonna piss off a few folk and just say all of it's Indian Kashmir. Now this will get us a few views. Piss off a few people.
All of it is Indian Kashmir?
Yeah. There's no Pakistani Kashmir, it's all Indian.
Boy, quiet down, boy.
Hey, I'm causing a scene so we can get more views.
Now, we don't want to cause. We're already kind of blocked in Pakistan. Let's face it, we're blocked in countries like Pakistan.
Oh, what are they gonna do? Like pull me out of a window like they did to Imran Khan?
Yeah, probably. Well, they'll have to actually book a flight to Canada and do that. And that's the worst they could. And again, I don't think they'll even be able to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Why? Is it because I'm too fat to come out of a window?
I wasn't gonna say that, but since you insisted, then yes, you are quite thick. Are quite the thick man. So, yes, and of course, sorry, Ginny. Sorry, oh God, no. Sorry, Ginny. We're definitely we're also partial trolls as well, too. So we apologize to Ginny. By the way, Ginny, you can join us too if you want to express your distaste in our rhetoric. So, and you can play devil's advocate as much as you want, but just beware, I have a holy stick now. All right. So yeah, basically governments have a hammer and it's easy to treat the internet as a nail, says Karthik Natyapan, a South Asian expert based in Singapore. In Pakistan, the move has had a particular impact because it shuts down what is seen to be the only place to get real news in the country. A decade of attacks on the country's independent journalists and newspapers by the military authorities is why regarded to have muzzled the mainstream media. And yes, this has happened. What happened was that in the past, without the internet, journalists would be abducted from their own homes by military personnel, and they would disappear. Sometimes they would be beaten, um,
Hide and go seek and boxing.
or like threatened. Their families threatened. So this is this has happened with the Pakistani. This has been a tactic employed by the Pakistani military for decades. So this is nothing new, and that is why the public trusts the internet, because that's the where we can actually get the proper news, because mainstream media, which is on the television, on newspapers, is too scared to report. Heck, very recently there have been mob reports, like mob lynching reports, which I'll read Zain Sami's statement, by the way, that were underreported in the last 2 months. So there have been tensions that were underreported because they didn't want the situation to escalate. And part of it was also because there's also this cleaning up the image too, the image of Pakistan. Now, trust that the mainstream outlets will adequately inform the public has broken so much that people must go online to find out what truly happened. Pakistani politics expert with the Atlantic Council, Uzair Yunus. Now, people say, okay, it's not really worth watching television because the military is governing what can and cannot be said, says Mr. Yunus. So when it comes to breaking news like Khan's arrest, people flock online to reputable journalists and YouTube channels, as well as social media. This person says, I was glued at my screen at work watching GeoNews, one of the country's largest broadcasters, but then I was getting a whole lot of more information about protests who had been shot. Tear gas was being shared on WhatsApp and on Twitter. Geo was not covering any of that. So Geo, being one of the biggest news networks in Pakistan, private news networks, not even government, wasn't reporting these situations because there was a lot of tear gas. There's a lot of both men and women were protesting, and the police were brutalizing.
Oh, and Moose, just so you know, that issue that I told you before the show started. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no worries. You can
Alright.
you can sit this one out.
Alright.
But thank you for joining today. I'll cover the rest. I'll do all the articles. I apologize if it'll just be reading articles for now and it's not as entertaining.
Alright. Take
But I
care,
really
guys.
want it. Yeah, but take care. But yes, so Nick had some private things to do. Again, these things got delayed, but he'll be back in the next episode, so not to worry. So basically, even though Geo News has been censored in the past, I feel like they don't want to get censored again. And of course, there are the usual issues that come on relying on social media. It's a complicated political scene, misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories. Yeah, that's the internet in a nutshell, basically. You're also going to be subject to misinformation and conspiracy theories. So no matter what kind of information people are consuming, limiting online access is a gross violation of fundamental rights. This is Ms. Dag, who runs a digital rights foundation in Lahore. When you shut down the internet, people have no choice in accessing information. She argues that authorities' blanket ban violates freedom of speech, access to information, and the right to assembly, which is enshrined in the Pakistan's constitution. Internet access is a human right recognized by the United Nations. Now, of course, when it comes to like censorship, Pakistan's pretty big on that. They've been censoring this. This is not the first time that they've been censoring something online too. Like I remember YouTube was banned for a while. Facebook was banned for a while, just because there was like anti-government or anti-Islamic material. That is, so we have like what Pakistan deals with is an authoritarian military, but also deals with an authoritarian religion, like the Islamic religion. So we have a lot of religious leaders that are powerful, but we also have a lot of military leaders that are powerful. So ever since Mr. Khan was voted out in April, last April. This is 2022. Internet censorship has become more common. Um, he's been on convoys. He's loudly claiming that his removal was illegitimate, and the charges against him were false. And there were a lot of false charges against him for corruption. That is, there was a lot of charges of what do you call it? Yeah, corruption charges against him, which are, he alleges that they are false. And yes, there isn't a lot of evidence for the corruption charges against Mr. Khan himself. So this is the most severe censorship. So yes, this has been a very severe censorship because it was throughout the entire country. The scale involves multiple forms of disruption, both mobile and social platforms, to show a conceited, urgent effort to control the narrative. Now, and despite all this, they were not able to stop the protests. What do you call it? A Khan stronghold in Pakistan's the telecoms authority later confirmed that it had sent around the kill order following a directive from the interior. So NetBlocks identified that the mobile networks affected had gone down in areas, a Khan stronghold and Pakistan's most populous province. The telecoms authority later confirmed it had sent around the kill order following, the kill order to put down the internet, that is. Sorry, guys. For the Pakistan's current rulers, shutting down the internet is a significant move, and it's not taken lightly. It legit cuts off public access to healthcare, emergency, and financial services. Also, it does affect businesses. It does affect millions of people who are reliant on internet technology that are, that depend on their livelihood. So it did affect, for 2 days, it affected people's livelihoods. There were people who use Careem. Careem is is like an Uber, basically. A lot of people are Uber drivers. A lot of people are delivery. They do food delivery, like Food Panda. There's also the contact centers for foreign companies. There are also internet-based jobs too that literally depend on the internet. So, and a lot of people were deprived of their livelihood. And they're not paid a lot too, but they make below minimum, below Pakistan's minimum. So this has been, so like delivery drivers, tech community rely on the internet to earn a living. So basically, this article talks about his online dominance, and it's been because he has a younger tech-savvy voter base, that is, it's social media machine since 2018 actually, that has been, very, very influential online. So that's why they shut down the internet. The military and the government are worried about a party using social media for anti-army political mobilization. And this is where the military in particular sees the scale of retweets and likes as a signal of political strength, which can have a knock on the mobilization effects, he said. So since Khan's arrest, the PTI has been feeding a legion about 9 million followers of Twitter with hourly updates. Khan himself has over 19 million followers. Pakistan military has about 6 million, and the current prime minister has 6.6 million. So compared to the military and the current prime minister, Imran Khan has a larger following online. And this is not just following in Pakistan, but also of a lot of overseas Pakistanis as well, too. So we're counting both. So what's even more galling is that, so basically, initially the military, I'll summarize all of this. Initially, the military was on the same bandwagon as Imran Khan. He did come to power with the support of the military. Now, ever since they've been, separated, the military was not able to maintain this following. Like, for example, under attack on their YouTube account this week, the military at first disabled rabid comments from Khan supporters. In the end, they just turned the whole thing off. So they have to resort to turning off comments, turning off everything practically. So this is the situation. And despite the internet ban, they were not able to block any of the what do you call it, um, protests. They were not able to prevent. Um, yeah. So, oh, sorry, I just got distracted by the comments. Yeah. So, yeah, there's some comments. Hiya. There we go. All right. So, next article. I apologize. I'm going to read more articles about Pakistan's situation. Um, is this the same article? Yeah. One second. I'm just going to close. I have a lot of links open. So, so I'm also going to cover this news that Imran Khan's released on bail. So he has been released on bail for just 2 weeks, though, as of now, and it's only temporary because there will be still a trial that will take place in regards to his, the charges against him. Again, corruption charges, and these are charges put on him by the military. He had to leave the court under police protection. However, even though he was granted bail, he was kept there for 3 hours. So, what do you call it? He said, "I will be illegally arrested, this time outside the high court. I know I'll be arrested. My simple message is, how am I supposed to control what will happen afterwards?" So he said that this message, he told his followers to be peaceful, adding that he won't be responsible for the reaction of the protesters if he was arrested again. Now he's like, for 27 years, show me one message that's different from this. So yeah, his protesters, you can't control people's emotions. You really can't. Now, this is only a 2-week temporary release, and there will be the Supreme Court will be what do you call it? There will be a trial. The parties has filed a petition to challenge the illegal land acquisition charges. So these are illegal land acquisition charges against him. So soon after his arrest, Khan accused country's powerful army chief, "There's only one man taking action against me, and that is the army chief," he told us, referring to the army chief Sayyid Asim Munir. So what do you call it? So basically, yes, this is the military. So these are some scenes. Yeah, so these are some scenes against the police. Khan being escorted. So there have been countrywide, there have been a lot of violent clashes. That is, lots of violent clashes. So Khan also made allegations against the government that they worked with the United States in a conspiracy to remove him from office. Again, there's also accused the United States as well too. The army he's accused as well, and also, of course, we discovered the government blocked the media. Right now, as of now, the what do you call it? The internet is coming back, but it's caused a big damage. It's caused a huge economic damage. Already, Pakistan was on the brink of an economic collapse with the soaring inflation, and I think this is why you've kind of left people with no choice. Like, they have nothing to lose at this point. So that's why you kind of see what's the scenes that are outside of that are at the result of what's happening in Pakistan. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, you can definitely join. Yes, let me actually put the link to the invite link. 1 second, guys. So yeah, anyone who wants to join, any information that you know, any updates, please do let me know. I'm just reading off articles or taking my information from articles or what I've been told so far. Again, this is based off of, so this is the link. I'm just posting the link. So right now, at the moment, there has been a, what do you call it? Where is the Jeez, I have so many links open, guys. Sorry. Um, yes, so there has been an order against those who've caused vandalism to be arrested. Now, personally speaking, personally speaking, I'm not necessarily against the protesters because there's the silver lining that they have been against the military establishment. This is for a very long after such a long time that we've had people standing up to the military. Now, however, Shehbaz Sharif, the younger brother of Nawaz Sharif, is gonna say that they're gonna arrest some of these people, and yeah, there were some people that did um, what do you call it, take it too far. That is. So they stormed military establishments right here. They stormed military establishments, set ablaze the state broadcaster building, smashed buses, ransacked top army officials' house, which was the corps commander, and attacked other assets, leading to the army being deployed in multiple cities. So there was a state of emergency that had to be declared. More than 2,800 arrests have been made. While 152 police officers were injured, 74 police vehicles were vandalized and set on fire, and 22 government buildings, including police stations and offices, were damaged. So, and this is what we have been reported so far. Oh dear, just go away, you stupid ad. All right. At least 8 people were killed in the violence, in the spasm of unrest. Um, and while this is happening, there has been a delay in IMF funding too. The Sharif's announcement is that the Punjab government is releasing pictures of unidentified protesters. So they're gonna try to pick up people, because again, what do you call it? I will read another report that will talk about the story of what was happening during the protests. So it's on my Instagram. 1 second. So Reformistan is a page that I follow that was making Yes, I'm welcoming guests. I did post a link, so you can actually, if you want to update, I'll post the link here, the StreamYard link, and then I'll let you in on the what do you call it? To if you have any input, any updates, because I know today's focus will be on the Pakistani situation, because it has been quite dramatic, quite dramatic. And so, and of course, as much as I also respect Imran Khan, I also don't respect him at the same time. My personal opinion, he's very pro-Taliban. He's very, he's very anti-woman in many of his stances. He also silent on matters of minorities. But unfortunately, this is the what do you call it? The least worst option for the Pakistani public. That is. By the way, this is the StreamYard link right here. I'm gonna star it just so you guys can see, and so yeah, just click on the link if you want to join. Oh geez, where am I going now? I've lost the link. All right, I'm gonna present another link. Yeah, I've got like multiple links open. Yeah, this is in my chat with Nick. I was talking to Nick about this. So this was talking about, this was the 4th day. This was as of May 12th. That is, this is May 12th, and it was the 4th day that it's being blocked by the government. And people were requesting, if you're asked, what do you call it? If and because over 2 million Pakistanis relied on the internet. So then I'll yeah, so this is situations like this happened where this is reported by individuals. Dr. Sadaf Takwi reported that I was contacted last night to treat a lady through a mutual friend. This is from a hospital. An educated lady like us, belonging to a sound background, who had been arrested outside of GHQ Pindi Rawalpindi on Tuesday. While she has bruises, abrasions, and scratches all over, her hair is falling off in handfuls because she was dragged by it on the road, has a broken finger. One thing which stood out were bite marks. She's been bitten by police, some wounds deep enough to drain blood. The incident has left me shaken. I've worked in emergencies all my life, but being bitten by your own police? So it went as far as police officer biting people. Um, now, this was the Rana Sanaullah stating that the internet, this was as of 1 day ago. So Interior Minister says suspension to remain placed until the vandals are caught. So they're gonna still suspend some services. And this is what Reformistan reported as of 12th of May. This is yesterday, as of yesterday. So since yesterday 6 p.m., these are reports from people. 5 of my immediate family members, actually, let me just report some, yeah. So Hamad Azhar reported 3 sisters, Komal Hamid, Sarwat Ibraz, and Tayyiba Ibraz from the DHA Thana. Thana is basically the jail, that their father, they need to be released immediately. So they passed away, but they were kept in jail, even though their father had passed away. Since yesterday, 5 of my immediate family members, 3 of my family friends have been taken by the police, driven around in a van for 6 to 7 hours without food or water, only to be sent to a holding cell where they had been for the last 12 to 15 hours. These people were not carrying out acts of terror and are being unlawfully detained. 5 of them are women, and the men who have already been physically reprimanded only because they wanted to peacefully protest for democratic justice. And we are struggling to ensure their release. A very dark day indeed. So this was what was happening. People were being picked up. Even Aftab Iqbal, a journalist, was picked up. This is a former human rights minister, Shireen Mazari. She was arrested from her house at 3 a.m. Imagine the police coming to her house, taking her out at 3 a.m. And this was, what do you call it? This is what was happening. You're coming, you're entering people's homes at 3 a.m. and you're what do you call it? Yeah, let me just open this as well too. Sorry. Okay. So basically the government was overstepping its. Oh shoot! Second. Oh, sorry. 1 second. I got so occupied with the link. My apologies, guys. So my apologies. Did the link work? Okay. So I'll post the link. There we go at the stream. Hello, Mr. Born Again Harappan.
Yes. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Mr. Born Again?
I'm good. We're just relaxing on a Saturday evening here.
Absolutely. So, do you wish to contribute? Do you have any news updates or anything like that that you wish to speak about, or any particular topic?
Regarding Imran Khan, I don't think he's the solution for Pakistan's problems.
Oh, definitely.
I think he's just a megalomaniac. He's egotistical, leader. I don't see anything special about him, to be honest with you. He's not a technocrat. He's not an expert in anything but cricket. And like you said, he sympathizes with the Taliban,
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, this is a man who spent decades in the West, living a playboy lifestyle. even marrying a Jewish Caucasian woman, and all of a sudden he's he's a Molvi. I mean, I don't really buy it. And to be honest, what Pakistan really needs is uh, like the system needs to change. The judiciary needs to be independent, and the military needs to be checked. Because that's the crux of the problem here. It's the civilian government versus the military establishment. But yeah, I'm Pakistani. I live in Canada. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
you're Pakistani.
Oh, I am of Pakistani origin myself too.
Okay, that's
So
nice.
yeah,
But
and we definitely have the issue of also religion as well too in Pakistan as well.
yeah, Pakistan. I mean, I'm just thinking about the foundation of Pakistan. It's not. It's an artificial country. Let's be honest. And the foundation of the country is based on hatred. Really, it's not based on blood or soil, like most countries are. So, in my opinion, Pakistan is a lost cause. To be honest, and unless it becomes secular and has open relations with India, I don't think Pakistan has any sort of future. I don't know what you think about that.
Oh yeah, I feel like they should have good relations with their neighbor India.
Hmm.
That is one of the only realistic solution. That is, you can't keep. I'm sorry to say that you can't keep sucking China's dick. Sorry, just keep
Yeah,
going, keep doing that. You're gonna drown yourself in debt with China. You're gonna end up. You're also surrounded by like Iran and Afghanistan too, two
yeah,
unstable nations as well.
yeah,
So
exactly.
India not only is your ethnically closest relative, ethnically speaking, but
Absolutely.
also your most, what do you call it, um, is also very powerful too. Let's face it.
Yeah, yeah. India is the future. It's the fastest growing large economy in the world. It has a thriving IT sector, tourism, everything that Pakistan needs. But Pakistan's only exporting terrorism, unfortunately, right now. But
Especially the military itself has been exporting terrorism. That is, especially
yeah,
the Pakistani military, especially in the 90s, they started this, and they started doing that in Central Asia apparently,
yeah,
and Afghanistan, and I know in Kashmir as well too.
of
Um,
course. As Pakistanis living in the West, living in the diaspora, any diaspora wants its home country to do well.
yes,
Any diaspora wants, when they say that they're from this particular country, they want people to know that country for progress and being affluent and prosperous, right? So it does hurt to see Pakistan in the state that it is. It hurts your pride when you tell people you're from Pakistan. The first thing they conjure up in their mind is terrorism, right? Um,
well,
but
terrorism and creepy men online.
of course, and Pakistan, unfortunately, Pakistan does have potential,
Yeah.
but the people of Pakistan, they need to change. The only people that can change Pakistan are the people of Pakistan. And they don't riot when inflation is through the roof. They don't riot when the military dictates politics. The only time they really riot is when some unknown cartoonist draws a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad in Europe. So this form of they need to get their priorities straight.
Oh, absolutely. And even though today or the last few days, I kind of see a silver lining, but let me share something that my friend posted, who's also of Pakistani origin, Zain
Mhm.
Sami. He posted a status. I just copied it because I didn't want to dox him on his Facebook. So I
Mhm.
used his pseudonym, that is. I'm using his pseudonym.
Okay.
Um, and these are incidents of, you mentioned blasphemy, right? Like the lynching incidents of blasphemy.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is within the last 2 months. What Zain Sami wrote: a devout Muslim was charged with blasphemy, dragged out of a police station, and then lynched in Nankana Sahib. This is a location in Pakistan.
Yeah.
A devout religious scholar, let's face it, religious scholar, was lynched to death at a PTI rally for saying, "I deeply respect my cousin," who's a PTI candidate, just like I respect the prophets.
Mm.
And he just made a comparison, and that was enough to trigger blasphemy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
And
this is the that mob culture, that barbarian culture that I'm talking
yeah,
about, that needs to be eradicated. And I think, people like me and you need to speak up.
yeah,
Uh,
this and we have to, like, I know we're kind of like cats, but a lot of cats can make a lot of noise too.
of
And
course.
yeah, there's another situation. A severely mentally sick boy was arrested, charged with blasphemy, and narrowly escaped a mob lynching. His family then disowned him out of fear for their lives. Then
Yeah.
there was, yeah,
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
and then there was yeah, so the boy had to be disowned by his family. Yeah, so and then I wanted to say the next split. A woman claimed prophethood. She claimed to be an Islamic prophet, and she was arrested and narrowly escaped a mob lynching. She could have been suffering hallucinations or euphoria, or it could have been a calculated move to get herself arrested and eventually get herself out of the drowning country that is Pakistan. Again, all possibilities are on the table, all of them.
Hmm.
And of course, I do think hallucinations could be an issue. It could be a mental health issue as well too.
Yeah, yeah. I believe she was mentally ill.
So if someone claims to be prophet, there is a good chance that they may, or if they're seeing visions that they claim, they could just be mentally challenged. So instead
Yeah.
of like just lynching them or killing them, like, they would need help.
Hmm.
Now, a Chinese engineer was almost lynched to death, but rescued by the military. It is highly likely that there are more unknown reported incidents. So this was a Chinese engineer. And remember the Sri Lankan manager
Sure.
that
Yeah, I was
as
going to bring
well?
that up. And like, these people are never going to attract foreign investment acting like barbarians. You know, like, this man literally set up a plant in Pakistan and was hiring and employing Pakistani, and you kill
Mhm.
the man, and it becomes international news. You think foreign investors are going to come and set up manufacturing plants or stores? No. So, these guys, I just don't know how we could change their mindset. Like, this is the mindset of not 1 or 2 million people. We're talking about tens of millions of people who are just mindless drones, who don't have the ability to critically think.
And what's funny is that I heard like stories like, oh, they didn't want to work, that's why they lynched him to death. Like excuses by engineer Muhammad Ali. You know engineer Muhammad Ali, this fellow?
Uh, no, I've
He's a
heard of
famous
him.
preacher, actually. He's quite a famous preacher.
Okay.
But I was just like, and then there was the and then there was like the lynching of the girl, the TikToker that is at the Minare, Pakistan.
Yeah, yeah, I think I recall that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this lynching mentality, it's not, people are not addressing the issue. And the issue is they get encouraged for being vigilantes because at the crux of it, there's the religion.
Hmm.
Religion is the crux of it. And, there are teachings in precedents set in narratives like Ibn Ishaq of like people, when Muhammad was, disparaged by poets, they would go into the house of Asma bint Marwan,
Hmm.
and she was stabbed
Hmm.
by
You
this.
don't really hear about these things in the Gulf, though. You don't really hear these things in Arab countries. There's like millions of foreigners in the Gulf countries, and you don't see
Yeah,
them being lynched. I
yeah.
think this is an exclusively South Asian Muslim problem. I think, because they're not, Islam is not a natural religion to us. They misconstrue a lot of things, and I think this is just a South Asian Muslim issue.
Could
Of
be. It could
Mhm.
be. However, um, I've seen the Arab nations. I work in refugee law, right? The Arab nations have a tendency to also underreport a lot of things or not report criminal activities, such as Jordan, for example, as well as Kuwait.
Well, one thing about the Arab countries is that they're actually progressing. Saudi Arabia is
Mhm.
progressing, and if you look at the people in like Tunisia or Morocco, they're very westernized people. Like, their women don't wear burqa or hijab at all.
Yeah.
So there's something wrong with the South Asian Muslim mentality, that he's backward.
Yeah, it's there has been there's something is it's a combination of both the obsession with being religious, it's an obsession.
And no, you know what it really is? I think it comes down to identity. To be
Mm,
Pakistani is to be Muslim. There's no two ways about it.
mm,
And the reason they put their religious identity before their ethnic or even national identity, and then any little sort of criticism of their religion, they feel like it's a personal attack against them. It's a personal attack against their existence, and that's why they become so defensive.
mm. That could be the case. And I think one of the I think a preacher, I think it was Yasser Qadi or something, who said that the reason people are so reactive is they see it as a personal attack.
Yeah, the convert is always insecure about his faith. You
Hmm.
know.
And there also he also finished with this. It is very interesting that the media channels have decided to ignore most of these incidents, and not all. Perhaps they're trying to protect the image of the country, or they're simply trying to avoid adding more fuel to the mob lynching mentality, which has now begun to escalate at a higher level. Reporting it would only fuel to it putting more lives in danger. So
Hmm.
this was, I think, Ghalib, another YouTuber, he does his channel in Urdu.
Hmm.
They did something like this as well, to like,
Yeah, thankfully, the Chinese engineer got out, because he is
mhm.
a Chinese national. He has privilege, and they're going to secure his life by any means
Oh
with
yeah,
the
they need the
Pakistani army.
Chinese. Yeah, they need the Chinese money too. They
Yeah,
need the Chinese money.
exactly. Yeah.
So without that, I don't think they're gonna survive. Pretty
Hmm.
much.
Yeah, I mean, some people are saying Pakistan is going to like disintegrate into like separate nations. I doubt that's going to be the case with this chaos that's going on. I think the Pakistani army is too heavy-handed. I mean, look what they did in Bangladesh, right? They committed a genocide
Yeah.
because they
Well,
wanted the Bengalis they wanted to separate, so they killed tens of thousands of Bengalis. You see, this army will kill tens of thousands of its own people just to survive. Uh,
yeah. And they used sexual assault and rape as a war method too against the Bengali populace, and
yeah,
it was disturbing.
it is
Very.
disturbing. It is disturbing, and I think there's somebody in the private chat.
I think is there somebody? Oh, there's
He
somebody.
said, "Hello, I am here."
Oh, okay.
Um,
Hi, Jenny. I'm gonna add Jenny to the stream. Hello, Jenny. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, and I have stayed out since up until now, since I'm not an expert on Pakistan. But when you begin to talk about the Arab world, I felt, oh, now I can join in
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
because
what do
because I
you
can
feel
see
the
some.
attitudes in the Arab world in comparison to what you hear about Pakistan in terms of blasphemy? Like, again, you're the expert on the Arab world. That is.
Yes, what I mean, blasphemy. If you do it, officially and make big enough of a splash, you're going to get people after you.
Hmm.
But if you like, maybe make some you among some friends, and it isn't too obvious, then most people will just ignore it, or it will just be seen as a comment that has happened. Also remember that the Arab world is extremely huge with extremely
Yes,
big differences. Sudan is not going to be, if you live on the countryside of Sudan, it's not going to be the same as living in a metropolitan area of, for example, Beirut.
absolutely. Yes, it's going to be very different. And I think
And
there was, remember that incident where I think there was an Egyptian man who declared himself like he wore a shirt that he said, I'm an atheist. And I think he was, harassed a lot in the streets.
yes,
yeah, but I haven't really seen international headlines of a European national or a foreign national in an Arab country being killed, like we see in
no,
Pakistan with Sri Lanka, with the Sri Lankan man and the Chinese.
Engineer, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, you also have to remember that sure, you have had the Hindus with the, Muslims and such, mixing in on the Indian subcontinent for a long time. But in the Middle East, you have always had, in addition to Islam, Christianity in most of parts of the Middle East, and you have had Jews, and you have had a lot of local religions.
I also
Zoroastrianism, you have had, various sorts of minor cultic, religions here and there. Like,
yeah, and also I think the Arabs or the Middle Eastern Muslims, they're more attached to their pre-Islamic identity as well. Like the Egyptians, they have a very strong identity.
it's not that I would actually say that that's something that appeared later in history, and that they should still be actually very proud of their Arabic history too, since they actually Egypt still contributed a lot even after the Arabic invasions. But that's a side point. What I'm going to say more is I don't think it has to do with identity necessarily. I think it has to do with the attitude towards Islam. In a certain way, I would actually say that Islam, in many ways, has a bigger focus in the Middle East on orthopraxy rather than orthodoxy, which actually means that, I mean, if you look at the law systems in many of the Middle Eastern countries, sure, there exists a lot of colonial laws and a lot of modern law too, but you also see a very strong element of Sharia law in many countries, like in Saudi Arabia, and like codified into it. And this, and even again, I would even say that I haven't looked into the Pakistan law code, but I would probably guess that much of it is kind of like, oh, we have our laws inspired by this, or our law is very out there.
Well,
Islamic.
Pakistani law is a mix of what do you call it? There was the British colonial, as well as the Indian Act, that is, of the High
Yes.
Court, Indian of the 1930s. But we also have the Hudud Ordinance as well. I think Born Again knows of the Hudud Ordinance, which is the religious rulings, that is.
Yeah. I mean, that's similar to what exists in the Arab world. But what I do think is that if you for example look at the Deobandi movement, it's an extreme Hanafi movement,
The
and it
Deobandi,
reminds me, it reminds me much more of the extreme Turkic religious movements that existed in the past than it does of many of the more Arabic extremist movements. I mean, the thing is that it's you could say say it like this: as in the Arab war or Arabic history generally, and much in the Middle East that has been Arab dominated, it has been as long as you pay jizya, you can do whatever, as long as you don't break the rules. We don't care what you believe or what you really say; just follow the rules.
yeah. I feel
Whereas
like,
Hanafi Islam,
yeah.
especially Deobandi and other types of Islam that were heavily influenced by Maturidism, which is the idea that the most important part isn't actually actions anymore, but pure belief in itself
Right. Okay.
that precedes action. This is actually much more similar to how extremist Christian or movements in Europe were in the past.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I see more parallels to that in
Mhm.
Pakistan and in extreme Maturidi Hanafi movements than I actually see with more extreme orthopractical movements historically in Islam.
Yeah. And Born Again, you had something to say?
No, I was just listening.
Okay. No, yeah, I just saw you you were turning
But
on and off.
and you also had the fact that in certain ways the Arab world is actually very exposed to Europe. I mean, half of it
It actually is.
share the same sea, which is the Mediterranean with the
Yeah,
with Europe.
and they were, yeah, the
And you
French
also
were.
so you have trade contacts, you have a lot of that as well, which means that you have always had this openness to these other very strong civilizations there. On the other hand, sure, you had strong Indian dynasties historically, but either it was the Mughals that dominated totally, or it was in the opposite direction.
It was, I
You-
think, there was the Mughals, there was the Duranis, there was the Ghaznis. There's a lot of Delhi Sultanate as well, too, like the different sultanates and different empires.
Yeah. So
Pre-Mughal
it might
Empire.
not be that either, but I do believe that there is something to be said that Islam in the Middle East, sure, there is a lot of more, just generally much more open, maybe just due to pure chance or due to chance. But I do also think that there has something to do with that when you're closer to the sources, and you are and in addition to being closer to the sources, as most of the Arabs are by speaking Arabic and such, and actually also having a tradition of a focus on orthopraxy rather than orthodoxy, which I see the risk with orthodox. The good things with orthodoxy I see with religions that are more focused on that rather than orthopraxy, like Christianity, is that they can change faster. But the issue also with a focus on orthodoxy is that they are a lot more intolerant and a lot more extreme on thinking, does these persons actually believe the
Right.
correct thing?
So,
And thus it becomes a almost always a race to the bottom in trying to up try to one up each other in purity.
also, Ginny, just for clarification, for those who've never heard of the term of orthopractical or orthodoxy, can you define the terms
Yes,
separately?
yeah, I thought I might have to do it. Or orthodoxy is correct belief, and orthopraxy is correct action. These things are all religions have mixes of these, and all religions are have various aspects that are either more focused upon orthopraxy or orthodoxy.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see various tendencies in various religions that are a bit skewed toward one or the other. For example, Christianity, or at least many types of Western Christianity, are more focused on orthodoxy, having the correct beliefs, having the correct views of God,
Right.
rather than orthopraxy, doing the correct acts. For example, the Old Testament laws were pretty quickly in the Western Roman Christian tradition abandoned for
Yeah.
a focus upon Jesus as the Savior and the view of Jesus.
And
And if you go back to and if you go to orthopraxy, you have Jewish religious traditions that say that belief is unimportant. As long as you worship God, do the rituals to God,
mm-hmm.
you're considered a good Jew.
Right. And the
Even
more
if you don't
focus-
believe in God.
yeah, more focus on the practical things and more.
Yeah, and Islam is kind of mixed in these and have had various traditions that go in very different directions. You have had Hanafi Maturidi traditions that are very focused upon the Orthodox, Greece is Orthodox, but that's another use of the term Orthodox, since Orthodox means correct belief.
Yeah.
That's separate from this discussion I am having right now. All right, let me just catch my thought. Right. For example, Islam has had very different, directions depending upon where you look at it. And I would say that Hanafi Maturidi Islam has almost always had it hasn't dropped like Sharia law. So it still has orthopraxical elements, but it had a greater focus upon orthodoxy than other types of Islam that had greater focus upon orthopraxy, the correct action.
Because there are certain Shafi, for example, in some elements is more orthopractical in some elements compared to, let's just say, the Jafri school or the It depends on the school too. So it definitely is. I feel like I lost connection with Born Again Harapan, but that's okay. What do you call it? So yeah, that is. But thank you for defining the terms, basically. Um,
But
and
the thing is that I see more a focus because sure you have a very strong orthodox element in Islam in La ilaha illallah. There is no
yeah,
God
la
but
ilaha
God.
illallah. Yeah,
That's a orthodox part. That's very strong. But outside of it, if God has had various attributes, and there has been some strong discussions about this in the early Middle Ages about God's attributes, if the Quran was created or not, and those things are orthodoxical questions.
yeah. Hmm.
But most questions in Islam in the Middle East have been about orthopraxy. What has been the correct way to pray? What has been the
Yeah,
correct laws? What has been the
yeah,
correct things that you can actually discuss and come to kind of clear conclusions about, or you can at least follow even if you don't agree with them.
yeah. And by
but
the way,
but
Born
if you
Again.
instead come into a discussion like Maturidi Islam, which says that belief is more important than action, and then you suddenly it becomes extremely important to discuss if God has attributes or not,
Mm,
or how we have free will or not, or
yes.
these questions
Yeah.
becomes extremely important, because if you deny them, you are automatically an heretic and someone that breaks the religion,
Yeah. Also,
if
by the
that
way,
is the focus.
just a quick segue. No worries, Born Again. You had to go, but you're definitely welcome to join again for sure. And also Christie's on the Bible, or the Greek Bible, whose more chapters than the Catholic Church doesn't recognize in its dogma.
This is
So
true.
yeah,
But the Catholic Church actually does still recognize all of the older Roman as extensions. They are not just part of the core canon anymore.
mm,
So they aren't because the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church until the 11th century was the same church on paper.
interesting.
And since both the Orthodox Roman churches and the Catholic churches both descend from the Roman Church, from that Constantine,
Interesting. So on
more or
paper,
less
yeah.
was the creator of.
Uh, anyway, a quick segue also into other stuff that I wanted to. This is something that hasn't been brought up in the news, but Beijing is pushing for Islamabad and Kabul for a workable formula against the TTP. Now, TTP is Tehrik-e-Taliban of Pakistan, and China is trying to broker a workable solution between Pakistan, the Afghan Taliban, that's the ruling, and the Tehrik-e-Taliban of Pakistan. Because the Tehrik-e-Taliban of Pakistan operates very differently, but has the same similar ideology. Now, they China wants them to neutralize the threat posed by, like, while Pakistan is concerned with the presence of TTP and its affiliates, they want the Afghan Taliban to neutralize the East Turkestan Islamic movement. So there are threats of terrorist groups as well too. So the Afghan Taliban government is thought to be working on a plan to address Chinese concerns, but the ETIM militants, but the issue of TTP still looms. After the Taliban takeover, there were expectations that in Pakistan that the issue would be dealt with, but so instead, Afghan Taliban wants Pakistan to broker a deal between the TTP as well as Pakistan as well. Um, and despite that, the like the fighters have already they've been targeting security forces. They've been targeting Pakistan civil and military so like locations. The current civil what do you, went intro after fighters started targeting security forces. So there have been a surge of TTP terrorist attacks in Pakistan. And even during the visit of the interim Afghan foreign minister, Amir Khan Muttaqi, Pakistan once again raised the issue. The official source said that the Afghan minister was adamant that Pakistan should talk to the TTP. He expressed his desire on the keynote. So they want Pakistan to find a way to deal with the Tehreek-e-Taliban of Pakistan. Now, they proposed the relocation of the TTP fighters from Pakistan bordering areas, but asked Pakistan to bear the cost. It's believed that a similar plan was offered to China by the Afghani Taliban to address the issue. Sources said that China is keen on both sides to do not lose the bigger picture while addressing the issue. So China wants there to be stability in the region. Like, they don't want to deal with the terrorist groups. So this is an interesting development as well. This is as of today. So there have been some interesting developments. Also, we're gonna we call it. Someone says atheist alighted. If Israel is an apartheid state, Pakistan is an apartheid state. I mean, yes and no. It's a bit more complicated than that. It's a bit more complicated. It's because, again, Pakistan.
My favorite word.
Yeah, I know. And Jinny, whenever someone asks me, like, Pakistan, is it an Islamic state or is it a military state? Is it a communist? I'm like, no, it's a bit complicated. It's a democracy, but it's under the grip of the military. But the religion, especially the Islamic religion, is very influential and quite powerful. And there is discrimination against minorities, religious minorities, albeit. And
the relationship between the military and the religion in Pakistan kind of reminds me about the relationship between the church and the nobility in older Europe.
Yes, it's very similar. That they have, we call it the Mullah Military Alliance. So, and there's a lot of overlap too, because there's a lot of military officers who are also very religious themselves too. They were recruited during the 80s when Ziaul Haq, the dictator, had declared, Pakistan to be a Sharia state, that is, for 11 years. So, so I think there's the remnants of that. That has been, what do you call it? People have been pushing back against it for sure. Like, you have a lot of overseas Pakistanis, you have a lot of liberal Pakistanis pushing back against it. You have a lot of Pakistanis who are vocal, though they can't afford to be vocal. There are people like myself, like ex-Muslims, who do reside in Pakistan, but do not reveal themselves or keep it on the down low or do not show their face. So it's, like I said, and because, again, apostasy is a crime there in Pakistan. Apostasy is a crime punishable by death, as well as blasphemy, that is. But there have been no death, like, courts have handed out death sentences, they just never were implemented because the mob would do it for them. The mob ended up killing people. So it's a bit of a weird mess. And like I said, Ginny, it's fucking complicated. So we can't exactly call it.
I mean, the same thing could be said about what I said earlier about the Middle East. I mean, there are areas in the Middle East where it is just as dangerous to, utter anything, against Islam that could be even in the most minute way be construed as being blasphemous.
Yes.
But,
absolutely.
there are also areas where it's completely fine. And even in places where people would be surprised that people don't care.
Yeah, I would be very, very, very surprised that there are very less religious Iranians that I met. I was very surprised at what do you call it? How one second. Sorry, I'm just.
I mean, there are also ways you can very stylistically get around certain of the blasphemy issues. I mentioned before poetry.
Yes. yes. Poetry can be very mild.
on previous episodes.
Yes,
If you do it if you do it through poetry, a lot can be forgiven.
yes. A lot of stuff you can get away with too.
There,
By the way,
there are very strange rules about appropriateness, and there are things that which are even considered or are mostly considered worse almost than blaspheming.
yes,
I
and
mean, it's
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, for example, this is also one thing that also is a very different. I don't know how it is in Pakistan, but if you would imply that someone else doesn't fulfill his religious duties, how would someone else react?
I think it's a bit, there's a peer pressure to fulfill religious duties for sure, even if you don't believe, and it's like people will give you that peer pressure for sure. It's like, oh, for example, in Ramadan fasting, oh, why aren't you fasting? I don't want to. I don't believe in this stuff, but still, you have to do this. Like, do it. Like,
Yeah, Christy, see ya
oh
in
yeah,
our.
yes, I have to go. Yeah,
Have
no
a nice
worries.
day.
Yeah. By the way, I'm gonna also.
The thing I was going to go about is that if you, for example, say, because I think this exemplifies a lot that I've gotten in the difference between Pakistan and in the Arab world. Because if you were around and snooping about and calling out someone for not fulfilling his, sure, it depends on how you do it. But
Yeah.
if you were doing it to someone that is kind of outside of your clan or family, it would be considered a grave insult.
Right, because you have to honor the other tribe too.
Yes, and thus people don't do that because it's so
Mm,
risky.
yes, and there.
Whereas in Pakistan, it I don't think it carries the same risk, which also means that it's
No.
more a free for all to always do it.
Yeah.
Which also means that there is not these breaks on the purity spiral.
Yes. Yes, and that's why people are kind of on
So
this.
I think, ironically, that Arabic honor culture kind of prevents the worst excesses here.
In a weird irony, even though the honor culture in Arabia, especially like parts of, I would say, Jordan, Israel, Palestine, Kuwait, these countries, they do face an issue of honor violence, which is fights can break
Yes.
out between two different clans
And
over.
this is also why you don't accuse others of blasphemy or
Mhm.
throw around these,
Because it becomes
because
an
in
honor.
Pakistan it might just hurt the individual and the individual might be killed.
Yeah.
Here it will not just involve one individual,
Mm.
it will involve entire clans.
Yeah, I think that's why in Arabia you don't get these issues, because the clan system is practically countering this in itself. And I've
Yeah.
actually done refugee applications for people facing tribal violence, but it's um, usually based off that one individual just escaping the other tribe, that is, because this person does not have a tribe. If you don't have a tribe, you're screwed basically. But if you do have a tribe, there is this layer of protection that you have,
Yes.
whether you're male or
I mean,
female.
this depends really also where you are in the Middle East and the Arab world, because certain places aren't really as clannish at
Yeah,
all. But those are also a lot more progressive, so that kind of countries that them.
yeah, yeah. So it really depends. By the way, just a quick another side here. I wanted to.
But
So there.
but to me, Pakistan and Central Asia and the Islamic world there has always been very strange to
Yeah,
me.
very strange behaviors, like especially like with even recently, I think Infidel Noodle described like Malaysia becoming more and more religious and more Islamized, basically, and even this province in Indonesia enforcing Sharia. So there has been what do you call it? Uh, there has been like from non-Arabs, especially, there has been a bit more, um, adapting of the practice, that is, and more, I would say, more extremism, weirdly enough. Um, so Imran Khan has also told the what do you call it? I just wanted to.
There is also the fact that I think that much of this Islamic, radicalization happened also earlier in the modern Islamic radicalization happened earlier in the Middle East. So it's
Yeah,
kind of like, I wouldn't say that this was a fad, but you know how if you go through something first, you're also, probably the first to
abandon
begin
it.
to go. Yeah,
Yeah, not completely, but like sort of shed it down too. Shed it down. The thing with
yeah.
Pakistan, it hasn't gone through that phase yet. It hasn't. Um,
Because you also need to remember that people can now look at both Yemen and Syria and Libya and just point to them as, you really want the same to happen here?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the Libyan situation, the Syrian situation is quite like, and the Yemeni situation as well.
Oh
It's
God,
quite
Houthi. Oh God.
terrifying, actually. And also, it's on religious grounds too, religious, military, all that stuff. Also, like Rana Sanaullah Khan has accused Imran Khan of training terrorists.
I also, I got an advice for you if you ever get, if any of you in the, audience that looks at this podcast or, show, if
Yeah,
you ever get a, Arabic girlfriend or, something closer, like a fiancé or,
fiance. Yeah,
an
yeah.
Arab or an Arabic husband, never talk about the politics and stupidity that occurs in their homeland.
Really? Wow. Okay. Note to self: never talk about politics with if you have an Arab girlfriend. All right. So
Because you will be dragged into all of these various
issues. Yeah.
group issues.
Yeah. Well, I have to deal with them because that's my line of work. Unfortunately,
Yeah, I understand
I know
that,
you
but
you have to study it. This is my line of work because I work in refugee law.
I mean,
Issues.
have you ever been in a discussion with it's kind of also interesting how certain Arabic groups actually also identify themselves, even if they aren't that especially religious, with religious moments, because the rest of the family does.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very tribal. It's very based on like the honor of the clan, that is, rather than
Now this is Yemen, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it probably is similar elsewhere too.
Yeah. By the way, just a quick segue into Pakistan. Apparently, Imran Khan is being accused of what do you call it? Training terrorists. Again, this is going to be a charge. I wouldn't be surprised if they start arresting protesters and charging them with terrorism. That is, or that they will claim Imran Khan is supporting terrorism. But I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if there were some terrorists within the protesters too. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised because Imran Khan has um, had flowery words for the Tehreek-e-Taliban of Pakistan. Like, so it's a bit of a weird mess. Um, so I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. So Pakistan is in this weird situation where you have to you have to like uh, deal with extremists, but you also have a lot of liberal, very extreme liberal people too, and also they don't. There's also a lot of like mob violence too. So, but in the Arab world, comparatively, the mob violence would be a bit different. It would be between tribes, that is. And in my reports, Ginny, I've encountered prices over a T-shirt can cause a fight too, or a man from another clan talking to a woman from another clan. Just even talking can cause violence. And
Yes.
there have been reports of that these tribal gangs, that is, there are tribal gangs gangs operate like the tribes operate like gangs pretty much. So this has been the the issue with the Middle East.
Also,
It's a different issue.
again, I need to reiterate this. This is often in the more rural or not as developed areas of the Arab
Oh, it's
world.
happening
The
in
Arab world
developed
is
areas
huge.
too. Even it's happening in places like Amman too, like in capital cities as well.
Yes, it does happen, but
Yeah. And in universities too, Ginny. So
yeah.
and a lot of this is underreported too. So we have to like look
But
up.
I wouldn't see, for example, if you were in the capital of Tunisia, Tunis,
Mhm,
and there, I wouldn't see the same.
mhm.
So even there are
Yeah.
Jordan, Jordan. Sorry, now I'm speaking Arabic, but Jordan is kind of like it is a lot more progressive than you would actually imagine, considering how clannish it is.
Oh, it's very clannish, but the thing is, though, Ginny, there's a lot of underreporting going on in Jordan. Remember?
Yeah, that's true too. But
Yeah,
what
and
I've just,
keep in mind,
I also want to
or-
give the counterpoint that the entire Arab world isn't, clannish, people that can't actually, act like individuals either.
yeah. Again, it's kind of complicated, like Ginny says.
It's very complicated.
Yeah,
And I
and
mean, but you also have this strong clan. I mean, now Jordan isn't my, specialty. It is more if you, go down to Yemen or maybe, also Iraq due to, context there. But that's more if you, for example, in Yemen, despite, I know people that aren't especially religious. Some are even outright atheists, but
right.
they are still doing, say the Islamic rites just
Yes,
because it's kind of like showing I'm a part of this group,
yes.
despite more or less breaking every Islamic rule,
Almost breaking almost every rule, pretty much.
kind of like all of the Orthodox belief rules. And even some of the practical rules too, but you still do the act because you want to show that you are part of the community, kind of
Yeah, yeah. So you have to
part
like,
of the group and clan.
yeah, absolutely. So, and that's why in Pakistan it's a bit different because it doesn't have the clannish uh, ideals. Like it doesn't have the honor. It does have honor crimes though. It does have still have honor crimes, but it's more fine from family status, from families, and again in both rural and cities, this happens. So it's a slightly different, but what do you call it? It's definitely it's definitely different. It's very different, and that's why we see a lot more blasphemy cases, a lot more, and also the reason for the blasphemy case, even though Qatar has also the same laws as Pakistan about blasphemy. Um, the thing is, with Pakistan, when it was implemented, it was even though people have been arrested, they were never able to implement the death sentence, like I said, because the mob does it yourself too. So people end up in jail so many times for years and years. Like Asia Bibi was the most recent case. She had to be snuck out of the country, out of Pakistan, secretly into Canada, in an unknown location in Canada, by the way. So it is a bit of a weird situation, not gonna lie. So, by the way, let me see if what else do I have that what do you call it? I think I've covered kind of the gist of it. That is, so I've kind of covered most of the stories. Um, so, if anything, I've covered basically what I've covered is what the current situation in Pakistan is, which is Imran Khan just got released on bail. They're having riots in the country for the past 4 days, 5 days. Um, things There has been an internet blockage too. So I didn't. Oh, really? So there has been a attack on Tunisia a few days ago. people killed at a Jewish synagogue. 5 people. They still have issues. Yeah. Again, I'm also guessing like.
But I'm actually very positive still about Tunisia. Sure, you have terror attacks, but you even have it in the Western world.
Yeah. Now,
both by migrants and also by various radical political groups here.
Yeah, though keep in mind with Pakistan, it gets in the news more often. Like even though Pakistan has tried to censor stuff, it's just this weird boiling point of, it's just things can get out of control. Of course, there's the other side of Pakistan that, there have been people not on the streets. They have been restricted at homes, and they have been staying silent. But yeah, it's you see more news from Pakistan because it gets reported more often. Whereas comparatively, Ginny in the Middle East, they do kind of underreport a lot of things, and there's a lot of heavy-handed censorship.
Yes, because you don't want to lose face.
Yes, there's a lot of the losing face aspect too, in especially from the kingdoms themselves. Like even in the United Arab Emirates, they would kind of underreport a lot of things to like kind of clean up the image. There's a lot of cleaning up the image, and even Prince Salman himself doing all these what do you call it, adapting more, letting like LGBTQ plus like come to places as the tourists, or like allowing certain things that are seen as un-Islamic. He's also doing it to clean up an image too, because he still has the Khashoggi murder in his hand. Like he still is guilty of that, and I think this is a move.
That's also connected to that. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a move to like kind of clean up the image of Saudi Arabia, so to speak, because there are executions that still happen. There are still like corporal.
I have my suspicions that he have done some of these reforms, not just to reform, because I actually do think that some of these reforms are genuine, but I do think he does some of these reforms as provocations because he wants the other side to lash out.
Could be.
So that he then can, with clean, face, actually oppose them.
Interesting. This could be the case. This could be as dirty as it's a dirty motive, but it might be effective.
That's my suspicion, and I could, go into hours as to why I think that.
Yeah, that in itself is kind of weirdly scary in a way too. So
because this has to do with interfactionalism in the South, and house and because this goes even back to when they were promising bay'ah, which is call of allegiance back in the day, and certain groups were faltering, and they have allied themselves very heavily with certain religious factions, and thus now you have the de facto ruler of the country, but he has not the support of these religious groups. Thus, if he does not have the support of them, it could be that they are just staying neutral. But since they are also allied to entities that are outright opposing him, they also become a part of his opposition. But he can't say that outright because there are some still on the kind of fence, and that might swing over to them, and thus he wants to play it.
He wants to play it safe, relatively speaking. He wants,
and does he rather want to provoke something from the other side? I believe.
Yeah. Also, speaking of which, I just remembered this is the house of the corps commander that was attacked. One of the army officers in the cantonment area in, I think this is Lahore. So his house was vandalized and attacked, and this is a very rare sight because for the first time, like this is a military officer's house has been attacked. And what's funny is that he has been dismissed because he failed to protect his own home. So the army chief said, you should resign. Like, I'm kind of dismissing you because you basically, I think it's more like you were a coward. You ran away from a mob. So you should protect your own home. If you can't protect your own home, I don't have hope for you in the country. So that was an interesting development. Also, there were people brought out peacocks, exotic peacocks, out of his house, out of certain military officers' houses, and it goes to show that there's a lot of like lavish spending by the military itself. So it was very like yeah. I'll show you the Times of India article. One second, I actually found the article. So hello, Fauji Serial. Sorry, we're disparaging your company. Sorry, Fauji Serial. Um, sorry, guys. So this is talking about stolen peacocks. Tell us about the Pakistani Military Incorporated. When the Lahore Corps commander officer was torched by mob protesting the arrest of former Prime Minister Imran Khan 2 days ago, a protester sneaked in and he came up with a peacock in his arms. The looter had the air of a medal winner. He explained to an interviewer that the peacock was actually bought by the Lieutenant General Salman Fayaz Ghani with the public's money. The peacock snuggled in his arms as if aware that it had finally got back to its rightful owner. Another protester held a frozen strawberry up for camera. The trophy it could have been, and it couldn't be anything less for Pakistan's poor, who had been riding over wheat flour, came from the general's off the fridge. So it was Yunus frozen strawberry. Um, but again, it's called Pakistan's $100 billion military incorporated. It tells the story of Pakistan's generals, admirals, and air marshals who have enriched themselves by running $100 billion business empire, the biggest conglomerate of Pakistan. Pakistan's military runs close to 100 different businesses. You cannot get out of a grocery store or shopping mall without having bought a few items manufactured by a military company. From cornflakes to breads and biscuits and cement to fertilizer, the military makes and sells everything from airlines to logistic companies, banks to insurance. The military runs everything. Think of Pakistan's military as a holding company with several subsidiaries. It runs 6 so-called foundations such as Fauji Foundation and Army Welfare Trust, ostensibly for the welfare of serving and retired Army personnel. These foundations own businesses and companies which are run by serving and retired military personnel and often fronted by civilians. The profits are plowed back into the military welfare activities, but in reality, a substantial chunk goes to the top military brass, like the top generals, who keep their hands firmly in the till. Fighting on the border and then in the boardrooms is an all day's work for the military. The phrase boardroom battles would ring truer in Pakistan than anywhere else. The military companies have often low transparency, and the tax regulatory agencies prefer to look away. And yes, this happens. I have seen military companies evading taxes or avoiding paying taxes. In a country that has been half ruled by the military dictators and mostly by hybrid governments that ceded actual power to the military, insist on looking at the balance sheet of a military company, and you will find yourself looking down a barrel of a gun instead. The military enterprise dominates Pakistan's economy so much that 1/3 of all of manufacturing, you can say, rightly say, after Mao Zedong, the founder of a totalitarian economy, that Pakistan's political economy grows out of the barrel of a gun. If the military business is so opaque, how do we get to know about it? In 2007, a former Navy bureaucrat, Aisha Siddiqui, produced an interpretive work of scholarship, Military Inc., inside Pakistan's military economy. Piecing together random bits of information she painstakingly dug out and put together into an academic analysis of military's business empire. She put the value of the military empire to $20.7 billion, More than 15 years later, it's expected to have grown over 100 billion. And she called it Melbus, the military business complex. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised even if it's more than $100 billion. There's another way that the military enriches itself by granting expensive plots of land to its officers. And I have seen these lands, Ginny, I kid you not. Expensive lands, big lands of plot given to military officers.
Yes.
And
I mean, the Pakistan army acts like the Russian army in certain
yeah,
regards.
very similar to the Russian army.
Only that the Russian army actually doesn't control the state, it's just corrupt.
Yeah, whereas the Pakistani army, in comparison, practically controls the state and has been doing so for, I would say, since the 50s, both directly and indirectly. And the number has doubled. Like, again, it was 2007, they owned 7% of the private land. It must have more than doubled by now. To know how much of the top army can get rich and how soon, there's the case of Qamar Javed Bajwa, the former army chief. Investigations by journalists revealed that last year that Bajwa's wife, who had declared zero assets in 2015, got to own assets worth of $9.7 million, US dollars, by the way. And Bajwa's daughter-in-law was even luckier. It was just 1 week before marrying into the Bajwa family, she became a dollar millionaire from owning zero assets. In 6 years, the Bajwa family assets worth are now $55 million. And that amount is just the rounding error on a balance sheet of Military Inc. So this situation, it's also not only corrupt, but like you can make so much money. The reason why this chokehold of the military polity never loosens, it's deep enrichment into the country's economy and business. To guard its empire, the military must control government policy and regulation. That explains why military must rule Pakistan directly or indirectly in the form of a hybrid government. The governments look away as the military companies leech onto the nation's economy, building monopoly businesses, cornering subsidies, loans, land, and resources at cheap rates, and getting bailed out with public money when drowning in losses. The military gets all the bang for its buck, and more private companies. Private companies know more better than bidding against military. I have had known companies who would bid for projects like construction projects. The private companies were left with peanuts, whereas the military would have first pick on the major projects, road building projects, etc. So Pakistan's optimum state of instability, because of a stable government, will challenge the military, while political flux will keep the eyes off the military's extractive empire. So this person says events of the past few days may suggest a strawberry revolution. It's knocking on the doors of the mansion of the military's incorporated. But this isn't the first time people are defying the military. Pakistan has got a rich history of defiance, especially by poets, legendary Urdu poet Habib Jalib, and signaled the rise of the military power. And also, by the way, he forgets to mention there were some socialists too, communists in Pakistan, the Communist Party as well, when he mocked the ruling dictator, General Ayub Khan. 10-20 घराने हैं आबाद और कारोदों हैं नशाद Sadar Ayub Zindabadi. So basically he's saying 20 crony capitalist families are flourishing, but crores of people, crore means millions, tens of millions of people, are suffering. Long live President Ayub. And this was in the 60s. Beloved poet Ustad Daman mocked the coup by General Khan. He says, my country is having so much fun. Whenever you look, you see the military. Such poets were put in jail, and they remain unrepentant. But the Strawberry Revolution has scored a first. Never before have people turned on the military. Defying the military so far been the job of poets and intellectuals. Now, Imran Khan has democratized the dissent. The military built its business empire on an excuse that often resonates with the masses of a third world country. The politicians are corrupt and cynical, but military is honest and efficient. Again, military propaganda. When Pakistan teeters on the edge of a default and common people riot over basic food items, the military's argument doesn't hold water. For long, Pakistan's needs have looked into the military's enclaves of luxury in disbelief and awe. But now the contrast is even sharper. Nothing may change in the short run, but the Strawberry Revolution has made one thing certain. The preening of peacocks of the military ink are now fair game for the masses. So this has been the situation of what do you call it, Pakistan in general. Like the military has had a tight grip. However, what happened in the past few days has changed the precedent. Of course, we have on one end we have the mob lynching, the blasphemy mob lynching, but this is by the political protesters. So there's quite like I wouldn't be surprised if there's a rise on vigilantism as well. I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. So, and the military has also made an alliance, like Culture Journey we were discussing, with the religious too, in order to control the minds of the people.
I mean, you do have something similar, at least in Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Very similar to Egypt.
I wouldn't call it very similar. It has been kind of strange since, the Muslim Brotherhood, but usually it was kind of less that they work together and more like, I don't step on your toes and you don't step on mine.
Yes. Whereas the military in Pakistan works with Tehreek-e-Taliban of Pakistan, the various religious movements. They work together. And there are certain officers who are from said movements as well, too. So this is why also Pakistan has also been blocking.
So it's also is kind of. I mean, Syria before the revolution was kind of similar in that you had the Assad regime being very closely, allied to the various Alawite groups and Shia groups to maintain power. But even then, they kind of had them at arm's length because you didn't want to get too associated with them because, you were ruling a Sunni majority country.
Yeah. And the issue is with Pakistan, though, it's a Sunni majority country.
Yeah, but what I meant is that the Middle East has always been a bit, you have always had, sure, you want to, promote certain groups, usually your own, but there is almost always been other groups that if you promote your own too much, you will step on their toes, and if you step on their toes, they will rebel.
And I think the issue with Syria was because it was an Alawite Shia minority that was in power. The Sunni majority were upset.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you begin to, promote your own, minority sect too much, or became too favorable to them, then you are going to cause a rebellion.
Yeah.
And that also limited it in the the association. Now due to the civil war, it has almost become synonymous with Assad support, but that wasn't the case before in the same way because they were afraid of the scenario that eventually happened.
And with Pakistan, however, the situation's different because the majority is Sunni, the military also is Sunni as well too. And what do you call it? We also had, I think, even Iraq faced a problem too, where Saddam Hussein, being the Sunni minority leader, ruled over a majority Shia population.
What does Hay Sakina mean?
Oh, hey Sakina. Sakina was the daughter of Hussein who got killed. It's a chant in Shia Islam.
All right.
This is trolling. I know.
All right. I thought it was
you guys are from the creed of Yazid, of course. I am kidding.
But I thought Hi Sakina meant something else. I thought
No,
it
no,
was,
it's the baby daughter that was 4-year-old daughter that was
yeah,
imprisoned.
yeah, yeah. I thought it was something he said in Urdu. So I
Hi,
didn't,
hi is basically hi Sakina. People do say
yeah,
it's a Urdu terminology because in Arabic it's more labbaik. That is labbaik ya Hussein. Whereas
yeah, Labeik, yeah, Hussein.
whereas Pakistan is like hi ya Hussein or hi Sakina or something like that in Pakistan. So definitely it's slightly different.
It would be Eyuhal, you Sakina, why Eyuhal?
Yeah. So if anything,
That's
but
what
yeah,
it's
back to the topic at hand. Yeah. So with Iraq situation was very different. Syria situation was very different, whereas it was a minority trying to control the majority. Here, Pakistan situation is also a bit different because you have a Sunni and Sunni basically, Sunni on Sunni, and they had for a long time silenced minorities, such as Ahmadis, for example. And since the 70s, they had declared them as non Muslims. So that voice is cut down. Then you also had like certain Shia voices were also cut down as well, too, via target killings, as well as like, in Gilgit Baltistan. Then you also had like rulings such as no Hindus allowed on what do you call it? Um, uh, Appearing on PTV, or they're prevented from even talking on Pakistan television. So you had minority voices already silenced in that aspect. But right now it's an interesting time, and even Aftab Iqbal, the um, the journalist who was arrested. I don't agree with him, but he used to say he used to disparage. He used to be like, "Oh, look at these youth, young people. The traditional like the old people. Oh, all they have is burgers and like they go on they're on the internet all day." But now today he was like, "These young people are braver than me, braver than our previous generations, because they were taking on the military head on and scared them away." Of course, it went too far in many aspects for sure. And honestly, riots do get very, very violent. That is. So also, yes, I'm from Multan. Also, yes, Sakina is what works in Pakistan. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's but by the way, hello to Multan. Do if you wish to let us know. Be safe in Multan. Be very, very safe. Um, I wonder how you're accessing this because I know in Pakistan we are banned. Um, so I don't know where you are, but yeah, do stay safe. But anyway, Ginny, do you have any thoughts as well too, like from what you've learned or what you've seen today?
I mean, what I've learned from today is that, I mean, there are similarities to the Arab world.
Mhm.
For example, various military regimes being kind of separate, but not really separate from, the religious establishment. But you also have, a very different relationship between
Yes.
the, military and the religion in a way that is, I mean, to tell you the truth, we need to recognize the fact that the Islamic world is extremely diverse.
We have to, absolutely. It's not just one entity practically. And every
I mean,
situation
Pakistan's, total, how many people are in Pakistan? Like 200
220,
million
220.
people. It's almost as much as the entirety of, the Arab world,
Mm-hmm.
which is a little bit above 300 million.
Mm-hmm. And Pakistani Muslims and are actually have become pretty much the majority of the Muslim population because of both Pakistani and Indian Muslims combined, Indian and
Yeah,
Pakistani.
yeah, that would probably the total of both Pakistan and Indian might even be more than the
Yeah,
total of people in the entire Arab world.
world,
And when I mean Arab world, I mean Arab speakers
Arab speaking world, yes. And
that either speak Arabic as the mother tongue or speak it as their language of choice when working.
yeah, and because you have 300 plus million Muslims in India alone, 300 plus.
All right. Oh god. Oh yeah, it's much more. I mean,
And
this.
Pakistan already 200 plus million. Also, Bangladesh is also 200 million Muslims too.
Yeah, you're a lot more people than the Arab world.
Yep, yep. That's why.
This is not to mean that the Arab world is isn't a very big place, because it's still over 300 million people.
It's still a big world for sure, the Arab world, but the Pakistani world. I think another reason it also comes on news. We're just way too many fucking people.
Yeah, and the Arab world also geographically is a much larger place, so you also get a lot of
Yes,
variations that you might not get in the same way. But I mean, India is still a very huge
very
subcontinent.
huge, diverse. The Indian subcontinent, we'll call it, like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, is still very diverse. But there is the Hanafi.
Still, the Arab world is much larger.
Mm-hmm. Because the Hanafi,
I mean,
it's
yeah.
Hanafi dominant, Hanafi and Jafari dominant, minority Jafari, but mostly Hanafi dominant.
Yes, and you have the Mughals that spread their Maturidi Islam,
Yes,
which kind of parallels what happened with the Turks and the Ottomans.
yes, and yeah,
so you do have some similarities, but it's also very different. I mean, I try to read Arabic Bandi literature, and the problem is that they post things in Arabic, but then they suddenly turn to Persian
really
or Urdu.
interesting. Because the Deobandi movement has become popular in Pakistan. It's become very popular in this part of the world. And Fauji Serial, welcome to the stream. We have someone disguised as a military officer. He will speak for the military of Pakistan.
I certainly do not speak for the people, the same people that we cannot speak about.
All right,
You
all right.
you see the dilemma.
Yeah, I see the
Because
dilemma.
yeah, because here's the problem. The institution itself, as long as you keep talking about the religion, does not take it seriously. But the moment you start talking about the institution, that's when you're not flying below the radar anymore.
Yeah.
All right, that's similar to the Arab world.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, Fauji literally means soldier, by the way, in Urdu. So
That is correct. Yes.
and Fauji Serial, he kind of changed it
It's
to Serial.
Persian, I believe, right?
I think, is it Persian origin?
I
Because
believe it is
because
Persian.
I think Fauji is a term that we used to about certain Persian troops.
Yeah. It could be. And also like terms like zamindar and jagirdar were also Persian terms that were adopted from the Mughals, by the Mughals, into their empire. Because again, Urdu has been
I
influenced
mean,
by Persian.
they did use Persian as the court language, didn't they? Mughals?
Yeah, they did. There's a lot of
just like the Ottomans did and the
Yeah.
Safavids did.
Yeah. So so Fauji Serial, how would you like to contribute to the evils that we are talking?
I just joined like I don't know 20 minutes back, and correct me if I'm wrong. Um, First off, I would like to um, express my heartfelt sorrow that the person who was responsible for creating Riyasat in Medina got arrested. I mean,
Yeah.
such a shameful thing, you know. I mean, God, Allah, to be precise, Allah would have been so much angry the day he got arrested. I mean, look at what he was trying to do. He was trying to create Riyasat in Medina, which actually which actually should be in Saudi Arabia, and here's this lunatic, and he's trying to create this in Pakistan. And I'll tell you why he's trying to do that. because he because Pakistanis actually believe that the real fort of Islam is Pakistan. It's not Saudi Arabia. It's not Iran. It is Pakistan. Can, can you
Oh,
believe the delusion
I'm not
that
even going to
that we have
comment on
been
this.
fed? That this is the delusion that we have been fed for over 70 years now, and now it's oozing out of our every single pore.
yeah, that's
Astaghfirullah and hada.
yeah, stuff, and also like
Yes,
there's
astaghfirullah.
yeah, the issue also is that when Imran Khan used Riyasat e Medina as a banner for his elections and the reason to get elected, I will create a Riyasat e Medina. I'll create a state like Medina. That's a very big claim because everybody in the Islamic world has a very different interpretation of the Riyasat e Medina.
I mean, this is kind of like, this is also one thing where I wanted to point out this kind of what I mentioned earlier about the orthopraxy and orthodoxy view
Mhm.
on Islam. I mean, if you view it that it's belief that is important here, then you could actually argue that he works according to good intentions.
Right.
He wants a pious state, and that is good. But if you
Mm.
look at it from the orthopraxy view, then you should go to Medina. Medina has all of these rituals associated with it. If you begin to use it otherwise, you're going to undermine that.
Yeah. And you basically also, if you kind of look at history as well, it's a bit, you don't want the repeat of what's written in Ibn Ishaq, Ibn Hisham, do you? You don't want that. Absolutely not. Especially in
It's
the entire of Pakistan, that is.
Sorry, cultured Ginny, you were about to say something. Go ahead.
it's more like these sort of embellishments of propaganda wouldn't really fly in the same way in an Arab country
Mm,
as they seem to do in Pakistan.
yeah, like there's this appeal to the what do you call it, the masses of, I'll create the perfect, and there's, I think
I
there
mean,
were polls.
there's a lot of embellishments in the propaganda in the Arabic world, but it's
Oh,
very different.
yeah, I think
That was more my point.
yeah, a lot of people were saying, oh, we should have a Sharia state in Pakistan. That is, there's a lot of people would say yes to that without knowing what are you actually saying yes to, because there is a lot of delusions, like there's a lot of ignorance around what actually entails in Sharia, that is, and how it's not, you know, feasible to enforce a Sharia state, especially in a country like Pakistan, which is very diverse in thought, ideology, very different in a culture. Like again, the culture itself is very different, but it's just like, this idea that, oh, we want what is more of what, again, with the Pakistani public, they think that what they see on a Turkish show called Ertugrul is Islam. That's what the belief is. The reality is very different. Yeah, Fauji cereal.
The censored version of Al Tughril. So all the semi nude scenes or harem scenes, they have been censored in Pakistan. Sorry,
Oh,
go ahead.
real? Oh, yeah. Oh,
Oh
they
yes,
did.
yes, yeah.
No
Anything
way.
that, yep. So this is the kind of Islam that we sell in Pakistan. That okay, you know what? It's very nice and clean, and it's all about jihad and swords and chopping heads off and everything else. But when it comes to sex, oh no no no! Nobody in Islamic world ever had sex.
And it's funny.
I
You
swear, this
know,
is how it works.
It's
we should really we should really send them some translations about some works of classical Arabic poetry.
Yes, they need to learn some Arabic literature, like some both during Islamic and Islamicate and pre-Islamic. We should definitely should show.
That's also a thing with their word. You did mention this before about pre-Islamic, but that does exist also in Arabic culture. I mean, the Antara epos, the tales of the greatness of the Jahiliyyah poets, the the heroes before Islam in Arabic tradition.
Yeah.
There does exist, Turath or legacy
Yes. Yes. And they're
from
not
that,
talked about in Pakistan.
period, which is still glorified.
No one knows about this in Pakistan. I kid you not. Nobody knows about the pre-Islamic poets. No one. And we don't learn
Absolutely.
anything.
Many of these pre-Islamic poets, and for example, the Antara epic about the hero Antara, you mentioned that, and his journey. That is standard education
And it's
in the
not
Arab world.
Pakistan. In Pakistan, we just get a sugar-coated version in Islamiyat class, which is compulsory apparently to take the subject if you want to get into a Pakistani university. The Islamiyat class is compulsory, and you get a very sugar-coated version of Muhammad's story. It's not even the real one. It's the sugar-coated version that you get, extremely censored. And you know, that's you kind of end up making people believe, oh, that's the Islam.
I mean, you do get that in the Arab world too,
Yeah, but like
but
this is all.
but it's more like if you want to read the rest, just continue reading,
Mhm.
and then you will get it. As I mean, the thing also with there is a kind of knowledge advantage when you can actually read the language and understand what is written.
Yeah.
And sure, there is a lot of illiteracy in the Arab world. There are some countries with pretty high rates of illiteracy in the Arab world. Not all. Some have actually have achieved actually very good rates of literacy, but some have still very bad. But generally, there will at least be some Arabs capable of completely reading all the sources, no problem.
Also, Fauji Siri, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, a couple of things just to add to the same point. One, um, uh, in Pakistan, it's a complete no-no to read anything pre-Islamic period because obviously that's zamana jahiliya. I don't know what you call zamana in Arabic.
Jahili.
Ginny?
Yeah, just I think Jahiliya. Just
Period. No, but
Jahili.
jahiliya, just one word.
I mean, it's the concept of the period. It's Jahiliya, but Jahili is
got it.
the
Yeah.
descriptive of it.
Yeah, so anything before Islamic period, it's an absolute no-no to read about that. That's one thing. And the other thing, I am from that generation which has actually read in Islamia class that story of the woman in the books, and I'm talking about school books, like the school curriculum books, the story of that woman who used to throw garbage at Rasulullah.
Yes.
I am
I
from that generation.
Yeah, I'm saying I have studied that in Islamia class too, and turns out that is a weak source, borderline fabricated source. Turns out.
And I'm pretty sure it does not exist in Arab world. It only exists in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka,
Is it
and
for
probably
social
Afghanistan.
discussion? Is this some sort of hadith that has been
Yeah. It's the
concocted?
hadith. It's a hadith. It's a very weak, fabricated hadith. There's another fabricated hadith called "Seek knowledge from cradle to grave, even if you have to go to China." That's another fabricated hadith.
Yeah, that one too.
لكن ليس صحيحا بالدال.
Yeah.
Oh, so sorry. It was, when you did it, I wrote it into search, and it's not true. It's actually, I'm looking into it now. No, this hadith has actually been mentioned. It isn't in the main, six of the collections, but it is a strong hadith that it has been actually referenced by a lot of scholars.
It has been referenced, but its sources are actually unknown, and it.
No, it has actually it has a good it has good needs.
Oh, really? But
Yes.
Like you mean isnad status?
Yeah, it's the plural.
So
Isnad as a need
so
is the
here's
plural.
Yeah, so
So
no, it's
here's a
actually
question.
modu. Apparently, it's modu and daif. Apparently, according to
No, the culture genie. Sorry, Moose. Let me jump in for 10 seconds. Culture genie. The ulama today, they are walking away from these two hadiths. Sorry, Moose. Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
but
with
I'm just reading Arabic scholars, and I'm reading here about how it was seen.
how it was seen, but the what do you call it? It's seen as in two categories: daif, which is weak, as well as like uh, what do you call it? Modu. And there's other hadiths that have been quoted many times, such as whoever treats a dhimmi, mistreats a dhimmi, Jew or Christian, Allah will be his opponent on the day of resurrection. This hadith
This
was,
this is this is how it's viewed in Pakistan.
yeah, like this is, it's seen as like, oh, this is the correct hadith, but in reality, it's a weak hadith. And there's another one called where Aisha never saw the private parts of Muhammad. That's
I mean, it is actually stated here to be Hassan.
Hassan.
Yes.
But like my source, it says here in like ex-Muslims of North America, it says it's a weak hadith. In you know the Aisha not seeing the private parts of Muhammad. Oh, it's Sunnah ibn Majah. Okay, it's from Sunnah ibn Majah.
Oh,
Okay.
it was about that. It's not that hadith. I was talking about seeking knowledge.
Oh, the seek knowledge, yes, but
Yes, it is a real
no, but what
hadith.
about going to China?
Hatta seen, even in China.
Yeah, but do you see the strong isnad though?
They don't say what. I haven't seen the isna, but I'm just seeing scholars that have reported it with strong.
Yeah, the thing though,
And these go back to the Middle Ages.
Yeah, though to be fair, it's not in the main stream like
It isn't. It isn't in the Kutub Sitta in the six. You know.
the Sahih sources or the ones that
In the six, you know,
yeah.
main collections. But that doesn't mean that it can't be good or strong. That just means that it isn't in the main collections.
And it could be gharib too. That's what we could say, gharib, which is it's a category of Sahih. But yeah, seek knowledge. It was al-Bihaqi. The text is al-Bihaqi says it's a text is famous, yet it's a weak hadith. It is narrated by change which are entirely weak by Shu'ab al-Imam. That is. Ibn al-Qaisarani says it contains Abu Atika Tarif ibn Salman. He is rejected in hadith to the utmost. Different scholars have rejected this. Ibn al-Jawzi says it's not authentic. Al-Dahabi says mention Abu Atika and those described Abu Atika.
Utmo ilman wallahu fisin.
Yeah.
I mean there seems to be two hadiths here as well that says about the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean one is even to China.
Yeah.
And one is even in China.
Though it's
so one might be strong and one might be weak here as well.
Because
because this is just, you know, these are two different hadiths, but they are very, you know, what I'm seeing here is that there seems to be, you know, even if in China and in China, I mean, there are slight differences here.
Yeah.
And they could have different, you know, isnads.
Yeah,
and
here al-Bihaqi, there's this list of scholars who've criticized this hadith. This is from muftisays.com. So the hadith seeks knowledge as far as China is fabricated, mawdu, are those narrations which Prophet had never said, but someone imposed a lie upon the messenger. Mawdu is regarded as the worst of the rejected reports. So al-Bihaqi says it's a text, it's famous. Because it's famous, yet it is a weak hadith. It has been narrated by chains which are entirely weak. Ibn al-Qaisarani says it contains Abu Atika Tarif. Ibn al-Jawzi says it's not authentic. what do you call it? It mentions Maududi was not a scholar. One should abstain from. And oh, really? So this Mufti says Maududi is not a scholar. Interesting. Only Allah Ta'ala knows best. So Al-Sakhawi says it is weak. So yeah, there's generally, but Maududi, however, has a different view. Oh wow, this sucks. Okay. Yeah, this led me to a different link. Never mind. It's not a workable link. Anyway, yeah, so this hadith is most quoted, very quoted, but overall, what the last scholars we've listed are what do you call it? Have regarded it as weak, like the many scholars that is. So it's only is French mustard. Wait, what? That's a thing? Only weak sauce is French mustard. I don't get it. But yeah, that's the scholarly opinion, Jimmy. Again, there could be other versions that are.
I mean, what I'm much more confused here is, could it be that it's just, again, this is, English sources, and I'm just saying that they do cite, many of the classical scholars that actually also use this hadith.
Yeah, but keep in mind though,
Yeah,
not necessarily all classical scholars are going to use the right hadith, because Haris Sultan did a video that you can even use weak or even fabricated hadith as well to enforce certain ideas. So this is allowed. So if anything, like weak hadith can be used in certain rulings, such as, for example, genital mutilation or female circumcision. It's from weak sources, very weak sources, but it's still used in certain rulings, that is, in certain parts. And some scholars encouraged it, the female circumcision, even though the source is very weak. So yeah, no, my apologies for confusing you.
I mean, you'd also have it in Bihar al-Anwar as well, with,
the Shia one, right? Is it the
Yes.
China one or the FPO?
the China one.
Bihar al-Anwar, yes. In Shia, I would say Bihar al-Anwar is decent, but Bihar al-Anwar has also a lot of weird hadiths where Jesus looks into.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I'm just saying is that when even, I mean, there are classical scholars and there are modern Arabic scholars that say that this hadith is actually Hassan.
Hassan, yeah, it's not the strongest. It's not Sahih, but it's
No.
second most, I would say.
Yeah, but yes, that was what I meant. And I'm just saying, is this due to you actually using Pakistani scholars and they having a different view? Because again, I'm more and more, want to emphasize that Pakistan and the Arab world aren't really the same.
No, it's this is actually from the what do you call it? This is from a Mufti website, that is. Mufti says. So they
on the other hand, also individual scholars have made massive disagreements about certain hadiths
yeah,
before.
and the scholars are actually from London. The scholars from London.
All right.
So he says that he's quoted these scholars from the Middle Ages who disagreed with this hadith being. They either say it's Maudu or it's Daif, but it could at best be Hassan. So definitely not Sahih for sure. It's definitely not a Sahih hadith. So yeah, that's what do you call it? Also, it's an English mustard versus French mustard thing. A parallel reference for those. I'm a Canadian, so I don't get it. Sorry, Drastic. I don't get it.
Neither do I, as a northerner.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, back to the thing. I mean,
Pakistani.
I'm not going to, go and defend the authenticity of a hadith, since I don't even believe that these are, should be seen in that light.
Yeah.
But what was more my point is that I think that there could potentially be a lot of differences between Pakistan and, also Western interpretations of Islam, which are going to be influenced by all different sorts of you know,
Yes.
Islamic immigrants, not just Arabs,
And
but also a
with
lot of Pakistanis. If you're in England,
Mhm.
I do know that that England has a lot of Pakistani
Yeah,
immigrants.
a lot of Pakistani immigrants, and I think an Indian Muslim immigrants too. And there's different interpretations how they see Islam versus how the Arab world sees Islam. Like I've even seen Pakistan being more rigid about prayer times, have longer prayer times, whereas I've seen Iran, I've seen Iraq, relatively shorter times for prayer, very short times. I was surprised. And they were relatively chill about it too. Like they weren't very iffy about certain procedures or anything like that. So, because I know there was the time where you have to focus on the sajdiga or you have to be focused. Whereas I've seen Arab prayers, people are looking around too, like with their eyes, they're traveling everywhere. So it was very interesting, minute difference that I noticed between Pakistan and the, at least in Iraq, that is. Again, I haven't been to the rest of the Arab world, but well, I have seen the Arab world, but yeah, I did notice difference. Fauji, you were saying.
Yeah, I think the reason is for that is that the Arabic Islam comes um, from from a different culture. It comes from the Aramaic background and and traditions from that part of the world, whereas the Indian Islam or Pakistani Islam comes from predominantly India, and that has its own flavor. That comes with a
I mean,
lot of
there could be some sort of religious substrate that actually does influence, or rather, there definitely was some sort of influence on local religious practice by previous religions, because that happens in all religions,
Yeah,
be it
yeah.
Christianity, be it Judaism, be it,
And
you
even
know,
there's a lot of old Persian
Buddhism.
and local influences too, Persian and local
Yeah.
influences as well in Pakistan. So yeah,
yes,
Fauji.
yeah. So yes, it's heavily influenced by dargah, by worship of graves,
Mm,
by Sufi Qawwali,
yes.
um, um, all those things which do not exist in the Arab world. A little
You
bit
do have a lot
in the
of
Persian
grave,
world.
actually, do have a lot of grave worship in Shia Islam with the martyrs there, but you also
That
have it in the Western Arabic world, in Morocco and the like, with
Yeah.
Sufi saints being visited, with their
Yes.
graves being visited.
Yes. I know Iraq and Iran are very famous too, with Shia majority
Yeah,
visiting.
yeah, but it's not Shia in Morocco. It's just
Yeah.
that part of the Arab world always was. I'm not saying this to be mean to any
Oh no, for sure.
people that live in the Maghreb region. Let's be clear here to the audience. But the
Yeah.
Maghreb is actually very different from the Mashrek,
Mm,
which is the eastern
yes,
part of the Arab world.
yeah, the culture, Ginny, I totally agree. But I'm talking about the Arab world. Morocco is not the Arab world. Morocco is Africa, and Persia is
Yeah, but
Persia.
the Maghreb is the western area of the Arab world, and that Morocco is part of the Arab world, together with Libya, Tunisia, and Algeria, and Mauritania. That part is the Maghreb.
Which is all Africa.
Yes, but
So
North,
that's all
North
Maghreb.
Africa, yeah, North Africa, and
yeah, but it's the Arab world. The Arab world is includes parts of North Africa, or
because they
they are
speak
included.
Arabic too. Keep in mind, they speak Arabic too, right?
Yeah,
In
yes.
Morocco, that's why they're
Even if the dialects are barely understandable, it's
yeah,
still Arabic.
yeah. It's still like kind of like an extension, sort of like a Western extension of the Arab world.
Extension. They have a long history of
That's true. That's
the
true.
Umayyads remained there. They have a long cultural history that is very distinct from
Yeah, yeah. The Spanish
East.
Umayyad. Yeah, yeah,
The,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and well, let's not look down upon them as just being an extension. They are their own
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
separate development. They equal in many ways to the East. It's just
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm not as well versed with the Western Arabic world as I am with the Eastern Arabic world.
Right, right. Okay. But yeah, No, that's
Yeah.
definitely
So
interesting.
and
Yeah.
and that's exactly what I was trying to say. That yes, it may be part of the, or rather, to be precise, an extension of the Arab world, but in no means it is the real Arab world.
It
Africa is
is the
Africa,
real
and
Arab world as well. It's just different.
no, my friend, that's Africa. Like like subcontinent, or Pakistan or India and Bangladesh is, it's a different entity. So when I say the Arab world, I mean the real Arabs, not the Arabized Arabs. You see where I'm going
Oh
with this?
Oh,
yes,
so you mean like
yeah.
Saudi is the main Arab
Saudi,
source?
Qataris,
Yeah. Okay, so you see
Kuwaitis.
that circle as like the main source.
I mean, you mean Arab, good.
Term for it. Yeah.
Because in Arabic you actually do have different terms about those that later became Arabized,
Hmm.
as
Really?
yes, and
Like,
you do have the term as which regards to Oruba, or original Arabicness,
Ah.
rather than the extended
Oh, okay.
Istiarab.
So there is a difference. Like they're seen as the later Arabized Arab.
No, not really anymore. And you need to remember that a lot of most Arabic culture actually was developed in Iraq or in the Western world, because they developed kind of separately after the split of the Abbasid and Umayyads.
Yeah, this was a
So,
massive empire
so you
too.
do have a long, fine cultural tradition even outside of the Arabic Peninsula.
Yeah,
That is, I would say, just as Arabic as the Arabic tradition in the Arabic Peninsula. So,
yeah. But there was a meme, Jinny. There was a
saying that
meme.
Africa, there's Arabic speaking parts of Africa aren't Arabs, is kind. I get your point, but I would still kind of argue against it.
Yeah.
They are Arabs. They are just they have a different culture than Eastern Arabs. It's just that.
I mean, they would. I would say they. I would kind of also agree with Fawji Cyril that they became Arabs later in history. That is, historically speaking. Today they are Arabs for sure. They are Arabs.
I mean, it's kind of like the term Anglophone culture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It includes, the British, Canadians, Australians, and of course,
Yes, yes,
the biggest of them all, the Americans.
yes. So yeah, there's definitely differences between the English, the Anglo world too.
Yeah, it's the same here, just to a little bit of a greater degree, but it's still, the Anglophone world or the Arab world.
I have seen more Persian, Iranian influence in the Iraqi Arabic
Yes.
culture. I have seen more Iranian influence compared to like Saudi. That is, it's a very very
Yes.
different. Bahrain is very different, and I've seen what do you call it? Egypt being slightly different as well too. And there's a meme where all of this region speaks the same language. They don't understand each other. There's a very famous meme about it too.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. But I mean, the very hard people to understand begins when you go outside of Egypt and went into Libya. Then it becomes ununderstandable.
Oh wow, wow! Like it's the same language, but it's not understandable. Like it still boggles my mind.
The dialects, if they speak standard Arabic, of course you can
Mm.
understand. But when they begin to speak the dialects, like, please help! I can't understand anything.
Because Fauji and I, we're Urdu speakers, and we would completely understand Hindi speakers, even though Hindi and Urdu are completely different languages when it comes to written form, and especially even their origins are very.
You do know that I can speak several languages. I can also speak German and Italian, which have German to a lesser degree because there you have Schweizerdeutsch in, and also in Schweiz. But you also have, where it is very different from even standard German. And then you have Plattdeutsch in North Germany,
yeah,
which is very different and completely ununderstandable with Hochdeutsch or,
yeah.
High
And
German,
they're
standard
all
German. And Italian has many dialects that are completely ununderstandable. But then I also speak Swedish as my,
yeah.
mother tongue.
You
And I
told
can
me
understand Danish people. I can understand Norwegians. I can even understand Icelandic people. A
yeah,
certain degree.
yeah. And you were telling me about the similarities, even with like at least pronunciation similarities with German as well.
Yeah, but German is there are similarities, so you can understand something, but you can't understand the language. There it is not mutually. But with
Yeah,
Danish, I can hold a conversation with a Norwegian or a Danish person, and even to a certain degree with an Icelandic person. I can
yeah,
have a conversation in my home language,
yeah.
and he can have it in his, and we
Yeah.
can understand each other.
Yeah, very interesting. But yeah, I know we've already crossed the 2 hour mark. Holy
Oh
crap!
yeah. I
Wow.
just wanted to say that
Yeah,
in the Arabic dialects are even more diverse than that. So
yeah,
they when if you speak dialectical Arabic, I might not understand you at all.
yeah. But anyway, for closing thoughts, we're gonna for I know today's topic. I know we started with Pakistan, but we went into like the Arab world as well too. It was an interesting discussion. I don't know what's gonna happen with Pakistan. I may make another midweek video or something like that, updating the news as well too, to see what's happening. But Fauji Serial, what are your overall thoughts with what happened, like with Imran Khan's arrest, his release, the bail, Pakistan as in general, like what changes do we need, etc., etc. So yeah, what are your final thoughts?
It's certainly a big, super massive headache for the institution. The institution has faced this kind of problems back in 71, but
Yeah,
somehow it managed to crawl out of that hole. And this time it's going to be very, very difficult because at that point in time, institution itself wasn't divided, but right now, at this point in time, it's very much divided. The country itself is divided, which is not a um, which is not something new. It has happened in the past, but what has happened this time is that the institution is divided. Um, not saying not that the coups within the institution were not ready or attempted in the past. It has been done in the past. It
hmm
would be interesting. It would be interesting to see if if history is going to repeat itself. So
like a
that's
military
the
coup or something like that.
no, the coup within the military,
Interesting.
not
That
just the
would be
coup.
very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, because
Uh,
it has happened in the past.
Interesting. So the military within the military, there might be
Yeah.
infighting. Interesting.
Um,
This could get interesting.
because
Um,
there is if you know what I mean, there is a state within the state, and then within that state there is another tiny state.
yeah,
You know which guys I'm talking about.
yeah. The brass, that is the top brass, and you have like
No, the guys who are invisible, invisible soldiers of Islam. So if
oh,
you
of course,
abbreviate,
of
if
course.
you abbreviate it, you know
Yeah,
what I will mean.
yeah.
Invisible soldiers of Islam.
Yeah, yeah. You have to also deal with those too. Might have to deal with those.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's one thing, and the other thing I would like to, before I leave, I would like to say is that next time we should try and make Riyasat e Medina in Bangladesh.
oh, please don't, please don't. Bangladesh is already like
I'm just
um,
feeling the cringe from where I'm looking at this already.
yeah, it's tinier than Pakistan, smaller than like a province of Pakistan, and like it's got the same number of people, but it's just gonna like it's gonna go downhill further there too. Like you don't want to do Riyasat e Medina in Bangladesh either. So
Yeah, but inshallah, this is God, Allah's will, right? So we should
quiet,
try
quiet, you
and
Fauji,
try for it.
quiet, you Fauji. All right,
Thank you,
Ginny.
gentlemen.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. Ginny, your final thoughts. I know you're cringing in your corner a bit.
Pakistan is weird, and their political situation is even weirder.
Yeah, I told you.
And
man.
it seems to be chaotic, and I hope it solves itself.
Yeah, I know. On Harapan earlier, he said that he doesn't see it. It's kind of he wants it to succeed, or he wants it to be safe, but it's like it's kind of getting unsafe. But anyway, Discord link. By the way, Drastic has posted the Discord link right here. I'm sharing it on the screen as well. I will see you guys in Discord. But thank you for joining me today, Fauji Serial. What do you call it? Harapan as well as Ginny at this moment. Stay very cultured, Ginny. Very, very cultured, and look at the complexities of Pakistan. Welcome to the complexities of Pakistan.
Yes.
All right, take care, everyone. Bye now.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.